calling you today?
Sylvia would be
Uh,
great.
all right. I'm going to start over them. Aloha, everyone. Welcome to our Zoom in on HB 1728, the new water infrastructure for catchment bill that went into law this week. I'm here with Sylvia Dolena and Christina Holt, and we're going to just talk story about this bill. And maybe the first thing we could talk about is how a bill actually becomes a law. Just really briefly, someone has an idea, they write it, it goes through the House or Senate, it goes through whatever mechanisms they have at the Capitol to make sure it's as legal as possible and has the right language. And then it gets heard by different committees. It goes through different readings on the floor, and it's voted on multiple times before it becomes a law. It passes in one house, so either the House or the Senate. Then it goes through what's called conference, and it switches side, and it gets voted on again, or killed, and then eventually goes to, if passed, goes to the governor. And so any bill that gets to the stage where HB 1728, when we found out about it, and now it's a law already, has gotten past the House and Senate multiple times in multiple committees. And so I just wanted to make that clear. Do either of you guys have comments about that on your personal experience with that?
Yeah, sure. The one piece that about how bills pass also is the conference committee part at the end. So it goes through their House or Senate, switches sides, goes through committees both times, and then once it passes all of those, then there's the conference committee,
True.
which is honestly where um, an incredible amount of funny business happens because conference committee is one of the only times where, for some reason, it's acceptable that the public doesn't have a say and any changes that are made.
Thank you for bringing that up. If I would have had more experience watching more bills during conference committee, I would have probably wanted that more of that to be included in our Ocasio versus House of Representatives lawsuit because there is a lot of funny business that happens there. So we'll be keeping watch next May,
Yeah.
April and May. Should we review the actual bill first?
Yeah, that'd be
Yes.
great.
Okay, so I am going to share my screen. I'm hoping you guys can see this. This is an easy bill for us to review because it's pretty short. It's only a handful of pages, 4 pages. A bill for an act. You can see up in the upper right-hand corner, HB 1728. It was assigned that number. You can see HD1, SD1, CD1. Those are all showing us that there were amendments made to this bill while it went through legislation and discussion. So basically, Section 1, the legislature finds that limited water infrastructure is a major barrier to new housing and sustainable land use in the state. Many properties, whether connected or not to county water systems, face restrictions that prevent efficient water use or new development. Rainwater catchment systems offer a low-cost, sustainable way to supplement water supply for potable and non-potable use. The legislature further finds that allowing these systems across all zoning types can reduce strain on public infrastructure, support local self-sufficiency, and encourage responsible water management. Therefore, the purpose of this act is one, to require counties to allow for the installation and operation of rainwater catchment systems for potable and non-potable uses on all properties, and two, allow the counties to require registration, inspection, or notification of rainwater catchment systems. And then we could go back down a little bit further where that's going to happen, and that's going to be changed in Chapter 46, Hawaii Revised Statutes, and is amended by adding this section. It'll be Section 46 dash, whatever the number is, regulation of rainwater catchment systems. Pursuant to the authority granted to the counties under Section 46-1.513 and 14A2, each county shall permit the installation and operation of rainwater catchment systems for potable and non-potable uses on all properties. Okay, they're just restating where it's going to go. Each county may require registration, inspection, or notification of rainwater catchment systems where necessary to protect public health and water quality, but shall not unreasonably restrict or prohibit their use. So they're just making sure that water catchment is now officially infrastructure and counts as infrastructure. So in Puna, it kind of always has, right? We already got them in Ka'u, in Hilo. I think Christina and Tina, in your district, you said that you guys have water catchment systems up there too. So where people do not have access to the county water system, we're already doing that here. County water system under this section under C means any public water infrastructure operated or regulated by a department or board of water supply system of the county. So now they're defining rainwater catchment system means a system designed to collect and store rainwater from rooftops or other surfaces, including irrigation, toilet flushing, cleaning, landscape watering. So they're really just redefining what a water system is, right? And what can happen and what must happen. It's really important to see where the shoulds and shalls or coulds and woulds, those words are really important when we're talking about creating laws. So for this bill requires counties to recognize water catchment as water infrastructure. Also allows the counties to require registration, inspection, and notification of rainwater catchment systems. So nothing's going to happen about us getting taxed or fees on our catchment systems or our rainwater at this time. And this is where we could start our discussion.
Yes.
But I did want to go through the actual bill because this is a perfect example of a short bill that was created for a particular purpose, possibly people in Kauai and other places where they need to have this water water catchment recognized as so that they can get more housing. But had repercussions on all of us out here who are living in Puna, and elsewhere on the island, particularly a lot of us in Pahoa who don't want more restrictions on what we can do, especially without being included in that decision-making process. We tend to take it a little personally.
Totally reasonable. I agree. Way up here in Waikauka, all of us are on catchment, so this one definitely caught our eye too. If I may, I want to start at the top of the bill on line 8. I'm looking at Act 10, not the. Anyways, the first thing that caught my eye about this bill also is that finds it allowing these systems across all zoning types. And I thought that was really interesting because it started with an open about talking about how this is for housing. And we know that generally housing would be on either residential or ag or rural, maybe, but definitely not industrial. So it's really interesting to me.
Wow, that's a really good point.
That we're starting with this like idea of sustainable housing and immediately opening the door to require allowment of industrial zoning and industrial facilities and commercial zoning, commercial facilities to also be collecting water in this way, which might not necessarily be a bad thing, but it is just like, it always catches me when bills like this are like, we're starting for you working class people, and then immediately widening it out to our developer class.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tina, because what I noticed also with this bill and the way that it's stated, because it seems like it does want to provide more housing, good thing. However, like you said, if it crosses commercial, then are the restrictions for commercial going to be much higher because it has a wider public rather than just your own family or your own residents? And then will those restrictions apply to everyone at one time? So that's why, that point is very, very important. And because some of the comments on Facebook regarding this bill, well, two main ones. One is, more along the lines, okay, so the developers win again. They don't have to pay for infrastructure and they can continue building and building. What will that result in? That's number one. Number two, is I don't want people on my property inspecting anything. So those were the two main points I got out of a lot of comments all over the place. But those seem to be the two main issues that people were bringing up.
And I think those are valid issues. I think for me, the biggest issue is that we had people from Hawaii Island at the Capitol who heard this bill, who read this bill before it was heard, and maybe they even live on Catchment, you know, and weren't alerted to like, hey, I should probably just let people know, or maybe I just tap into my community and see how they feel about this, because I guess my issue is that bills like these just tend to fly through, and they did. Like if we go to here to see how this bill became a law, I'm at capital.hawaii.gov, and I'm looking at this particular bill and what happened to it. And we could do a whole nother session on how to figure this stuff out. But we go down to when this bill, look at my, it was pre-filed on January 20th, 26. So it was written well before then, and talked about. There's no sunshine law, right, at the state legislature. So there were people talking about it. It was introduced on the 21st. It was referred to Water and Land and the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee. So that already we know went through two House committees, was going to go through two House committees. It went through Water and Land, you could see on 2-3. So people can go online and we can do a session just on how this works, so that people can learn how a bill goes through. Because when we're in session, see, none of us knew about any of this happening. We found out
Right.
about this bill up here after it says 5-7 transmitted to governor. We found out about it at the end of May. It was already sitting on the governor's desk before anybody in our community on Hawaii Island found out about it, or at least anyone who like made it known and had some kind of like, oh my God, what's happening? This is a bill that does or can affect us in the future.
Yeah, I super agree with that, Tanya. And if you look up at the introducers, you can see a bunch of Hawaii Island
Right.
representatives who introduced
So,
it. So they
and
had ample time to talk to us and chose not to.
absolutely, it was introduced by Evslyn, who is, I believe, from Kauai, and then all these other ones who are added after this one, I can tell, were co-introducers. So let's see, let's look at Illigan, Kehokapu Liloi, Kush, and Tarnas. So all of those House of Representatives members live on Hawaii Island. And then we can
Yes.
also go and see like where if we scroll back down, this is why, like, once you vote for someone, you need to pay attention to what they're actually doing for our community, not for other communities. Because these guys could have brought up, hey, can we carve out Puna, or can we carve out Hawaii Island, or could this be a Kauai County bill? There's other opportunities depending on the original intention of this bill, which we don't know without talking to the people who originally introduced it. But we can see here that it passed with amendments in water and, oh wait, is this already, yeah, I gotta scroll down here. So it passed on 2-3, February 3rd this year. The Committee on Water and Land recommended that the measure be passed with amendments. The votes were as follows: 9 ayes. So you can see all the people that voted. None of those people are on our island, right? Vice Speaker of the House said yes on this bill. Ayes with reservation: Iwamoto and Shimizu. I called Representative Iwamoto, and we talked yesterday about this, and I asked her, do you remember what your issues were with that bill? And her thing is always about community agency as well. Like, the people who live somewhere need it. She's from Oahu, so she didn't understand, you know what I mean, the implications to people on water catchment already. So that would be a regular response I would expect from most people on Oahu who aren't relying on water catchment already. For them, they might want more housing in areas where they don't have access to water catchment immediately. Let's see, and then we could scroll up. It passed a second reading as amended, and it was referred to the Committee on JHA. I mean, if we scroll up, we could see the original bill. If I click on this HB 1728, this was the original bill. So this is the one that was originally signed on to introduce, and it did say require the counties to allow, that's the same, authorize the county to regulate and enforce standards. So you could see it said, it doesn't say authorize in the final version, it says allow. So this is where you could go back and just look at the history of the bill. We don't have to go over that right now, but is there anything you guys want to bring up more about that? Oh, I guess I do want to bring up that when this went through the Senate committees, let's see if I can find that here. So 4/20/2026 received notice of Senate conferees. This is the process that Tina was talking about. You could see the Senate conferees that were appointed were Chris Lee, Joyce San Buenaventura, and Kurt Favela. So our state senator, San Buenaventura, was a conferee. So she voted for this twice. She voted on the Senate floor and in conference committee for this to take place. Okay, and I could see that because we can go down here where it passed the Senate with 25 ayes on 414. So all 25 senators voted yes for it. Now, I can understand most people voting yes for it because it's a housing infrastructure bill to get more housing, right, where there's no water infrastructure currently. But the people living on water catchment, I think, should have known, like, hey, my district is going to be like, wait, what? You're allowing the counties to do what? I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Am I off?
I think that's right on. I mean, it's a huge concern. As I mentioned, most people are concerned about the, I'll call it bureaucracy of, the requirements. What are they? It doesn't say what they could be, should be, and who is that left up to? So it's left up to each county, which means the council would then put in those measures or ordinances for whatever it takes to monitor, to inspect, to all of that. And right now there's, as I mentioned, there's huge concern of government overreaching into private properties for all kinds of things. What does that really mean? What is it going to look like? That's the biggest concern. It's a huge unknown right now. And there's a huge mistrust of this current council because of some of the bills that they have passed. And so everyone's really upset that I know of.
Just looking at the Nextdoor groups and the Facebook groups, I think some people are really upset and some people are like, oh, that's to be expected that this would happen. Like, of course they're doing that. They want to tax my rainwater. You know what I mean? So I do want to explain that, like, yeah, I think a lot of us have a jaded filter that we're looking at things through. And the way to counter that is to find a way to get involved, if you can, to encourage current people in office and everybody who's running, which I'll disclose. I'm running for State Senate District 2. Tina Holt is running for House District 2. Sylvia, we've always wanted you to run for something. So we need people with a really good eye on like watchdog, almost like watchdogs, like those neighborhood watchdogs. You love those people in your neighborhood, right? They're paying attention to everything. When you're gone, they're paying attention. They're letting you know what's happening. They know when dogs are loose, and they'll let everyone know. We need bill watchdogs.
On that note, Tanya, that's an excellent. I'm just going to jump in with my little segue here for. Again, my concern with this bill tends to be with the inspection and allowing the counties to get all involved in that.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
Not even just because I don't necessarily want the county all up in my business like that. But because this thing happens where all these kinds of bills get passed without any thought as to really how they're going to be funded. So this like falls
Yes.
back right into the one of the situations and the trouble that we're having with building enough housing is that we have all of these rules, which on the surface makes sense, but there hasn't really ever been a concerted effort to fund the implementation and the regulation of these rules. Because there's two things that happen, right? You make laws, and then you have the people who execute those laws. And so you have the people who make the laws, which are people who are sitting up in the legislature, mostly, unfortunately not in community very often. And then you have the people who are supposed to enforce them, which tend to be civil servants, who are not paid enough and have a workload that is too big in order to actually get their jobs done. So the bottleneck, one of the biggest bottlenecks that we're having in our housing crisis is the fact that there's a need and so many permits funneling in, but there aren't enough people to execute them. A real life story I have related to this is that I live on a little tenth of an acre up in Waikauka, and there's an 18-acre parcel behind us that was purchased by an out-of-state buyer who literally had never set foot on island before he purchased that land. And he immediately started having the forest bulldozed in a way that was concerning to me from day one because there's tons of streams back there, either permanent or seasonal, depending on what our beautiful rain is doing. And so I called him and was like, hey man, like, welcome to the neighborhood. I notice you're doing a lot of work back there. You need to make sure you're protecting the water and the land and your neighbors, or you and I are gonna have a problem. And he was like, of course, of course, of course. He did not. He did a bunch of, allegedly illegal grading back there. He filled in streams that are now causing intermittent flooding issues for all of our houses down stream. And so I'm, on the phone with the county all the time, like, hey guys, like, I don't think he's allowed to be doing this. Like, my house is having flooding problems now because he filled in the streams that are going back behind there. And when they sent an inspector out, he was like, there's one of me for the entire east side of Big Island. So this person was from Public Works. So it was like we have one regulatory civil servant out in the field for the entire east side of Big Island for Public Works. And he's 6 years past retirement. He may have retired by now, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. So when we're looking at things like allowing the counties to require inspection, notify, like all of these kinds of things, like also even the health department is another good example. Like our health department, who comes in and checks all the restaurants and stuff, we only have one of him too.
Right.
And
Right.
like without putting the foundations down in order to build reasonable execution times of this, it becomes an undue burden onto individuals who are trying to live and trying to help ourselves.
What that makes me think of, Tina, is when they do bills like this, they're not thinking about how the counties have to put in more infrastructure, people infrastructure, financial monies, all that kind of stuff that has to happen in order for this to actually happen. They're only worried at the top end, the front end of building more housing, which down the line has a domino effect on our water access. Because if we're going to build a bunch more water catchment, let's just talk Big Island at this point.
Mm-hmm.
When we are in a drought, or when we have ashfall, when we have less water, rain, right? Like we're all going to the county water spigots and the water fill stations, and already in those times we're having backup. The water haulers are already experiencing that because they only have a handful of metered spigots, right? So they've brought up issues which I didn't even know about. Of course, the water haulers who we depend on to refill our tanks when we run out of water. Even if you just had like a bunch of people come over, or you just weren't paying attention how much water you were using, depending on, I've had to buy water multiple times in my 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And the other things that have come up from those water haulers, like they have to fill only at their metered place, which is understandable because they get charged for the water that they're filling, because they're delivering that water. But if they have to fill their water at the Pahoa metered fill station, and then they're taking the water to the volcano to fill that community, which lives almost, I think, entirely on catchment, they cannot refill their huge water tanks, right? Their 4,000 whatever gallon tanks. They have to drive all the way back down our roads to Pahoa to refill. And that takes how long to fill 4,000 gallons? Like, think of how long it takes to fill your 3 or 5 gallon jugs, right? So it takes a long time. And then the water haulers are also waiting in line when there's emergencies, you know what I mean? So that they can fill. So when they do a top heavy bill and they, where they're just thinking about the outcome, we need the developers to be able to build more housing where they need it. Yes. And like, let's look at the entire process and all the implications.
Yeah, it definitely is giving like, look at this headline. Look, we're fixing housing. Look at this
Right.
headline. But then, as you were saying, the domino effect that could go down could actually make it harder to build housing because now we're adding even more hurdles that people need to jump in order to take care of themselves.
Right. And if this was some kind of emergency for other areas, then maybe carve that out for just those places. Like maybe it is Kauai. I don't know. Without talking to the original writers of the bill and what the intent was, that's what I always kind of look at. Like, what's the real intent of these bills sometimes? And also, I think you bring up a really good point about money. It reminds me of the cesspool conversion, where they were like, yes, we have to get off cesspool, get on septic. The state writes a law and then provides a little bit of money, which will not convert all of our cesspools. Not here, not in Kailua and Oahu, or anywhere else that they need to be converted. And it just puts all this pressure on the counties who weren't included in the development of the bill in the first place. When this bill
Right.
came up, it didn't sound like anyone in our county had heard about it. Maybe they did, though. I don't know. But they're not talking about it still now. So maybe someone will
Right.
come forth and be like, I was contacted and consulted.
What I find very concerning is that, and I heard one council member say this. What she said was, when I author a bill and present it, I always look at what could be the unintended consequences.
Yeah.
But she's just one person I've ever heard say that. And since I'm not that familiar with these committees and how they vet a bill or whatever, there really needs to be more due diligence because, uh, just an example, I do business consulting and project management, and I've managed global projects. For a global project, when you're going to put something in that's a change or some new process or whatever, you have to look at unintended consequences, what they could cause upstream and downstream. And then you also have to put in, well, what if a scenario plan? What if this happens? What if that happens? You put plans in place in case those things happen that would then have a severe impact on the community, on the land, or whatever, like, an EIS, environmental impact study, that kind of thing, for bills that like this, that have such ramifications and such an impact to certain populations. And there's also the way it was worded, somewhat vague, leaving it up to the counties. I mean, who really knows what's going to happen? There's no thought given to that, like you were saying. It's done up at the top and not really looking at what the domino effect is going to be. I don't know how we change that, but that one thing in how they vet a bill and how they look at the unintended consequences needs to be part of their process. That's my deal. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense that people are worried about it. We have, you know, hundreds of years of examples of regulations about water specifically across Pai'aina ending up stripping individuals and local people's rights to take care of themselves in favor of, again, hotels and development. And we've seen the ramifications of that. So
I think the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is when we look at the second purpose of this act, which is to allow counties to require registration, inspection, and notification. So, inspection sort of requires that you're meeting some kind of standards. But there's
Mm-hmm.
no talk about what those standards could be, might be. We've been living on Catchment out here for decades. There's a reported 30 to 60,000 people on Catchment on Hawaii Island. And that data goes back at least like 2 decades. So that hasn't been updated. So there's no idea, because they're not permitted at this time. There's no real number on how many catchment systems there are. And most of us on Catchment probably don't want people coming onto our property to just check out our catchment tank. So that's not going to happen. We can just move that over. That's not going to happen immediately without some sort of county ordinance. So we have time, is what I'm saying. Like, we have time until either county council puts forward some kind of ordinance, or the administration, the executive administration, the mayor's office has some sort of impetus or desire to do that, and wants the county council to put forth some kind of ordinance, right? So we have time to figure out what kind of standards should be, because this is the information that should be coming from the community. And what do we consider, like, so for me, I live on Catchment. Sylvia, I don't know if you do.
I do.
I know Becky does, who's also on the call. Okay. So when we live on it, it's up to me on the quality of my water. I am my own water utility. You know what I mean? I thank the rain and the clouds. I love it when it's raining and I can hear the water overflowing in my catchment tank. The quality of that water that comes into my house is up to me. Now, that may differ from what you consider clean water. I like structured water also. So, structured water is different than clean water, because you want no toxins or contaminants in it. Structured means it's like beautiful when you look at it, under its harmonious molecules. So there's different levels of what the standards would be. It could require things like no trees around the catchment tank, which used to definitely be a thing. You know what I mean? There could be all kinds of different things. It could be testing the water. It could be testing the pH. It could be testing for contaminants. Well, which contaminants? There's so many things that go into that. And I just know from living in Puna for so long, I've seen all kinds of catchment tanks. I don't know about you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Tanya, this reminds me of a conversation that you and I have had in the semi-distant past about the difference between, like, within the idea of public health, and the difference between education and authoritarianism. It's like we over here talking about allowing inspections. Again, we're talking about money, like who's going to do it, but also, why wouldn't we spend those resources on education? Why wouldn't we spend those resources on helping people understand the different types of water, potable versus non-potable, how to balance your system, how to, like, the different ways that you can filter your
All kinds of
water.
filters.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to do, and we're all left up to our own to figure it out. And that, I think, ends up in some people having a bit of a harder time. But I know down in Pahoa, there is a wonderful, please remind me of her name if you remember, the wonderful woman who does this education.
Yeah,
Like, her whole nonprofit is
it's a new nonprofit, Hawaii Institute of Rainwater, and there's also Uncle Tilo's. There's a lot of different people who are cleaning catchment tanks too. You know what I mean, and providing the maintenance of them. And so, that is an industry that's been existing for as long as we've been trying to clean our water. And so we need funding for creating the infrastructure for the education, and
right.
so people can make up their own decisions. I certainly don't want a government of any level to say this is what is clean water and you have to do this, and then they're going to go and make sure everyone's doing that. Like, that's not even feasible.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like my hope for government would generally be to help the helpers.
Right.
Like, instead of putting all of these things to go in community again, because the people, there are those of us who are already in it, and the people who are already in it are the ones who have the solutions to the struggles that people are facing. So it would be so nice to find ourselves building a system where our energy and money is going towards helping the people who are already doing the work, rather than continuously reinventing the wheel and then for some reason putting a right angle on that wheel.
And some people may not want to do anything to their water, and that is their prerogative. You know what I mean? It's like, but without the education to make informed consent, I'm a big informed consent person. I'm a big self agency kind of person, you know, and I'm a, you know, it's my body, my decision kind of thing. But without the education, how do you know if what you're actually doing, or if you're just, you know, ignorant of other things that could be doing? We need to do outreach about this kind of thing, you know, and there are people in our community in East Hawaii that are doing that. I know there's national systems. I know also, like in California, they've, I think, banned rainwater harvesting because they want everyone to be on the system, which is crazy for California, which is so under, you know, in the red. But that's a whole nother story. I don't know.
But
Becky, did you have anything you wanted to say regarding this discussion? Please jump in if you want to. Otherwise, we're going to keep on talking about this because I think this is three people who can talk about an issue ad nauseum, possibly. Any other issues that people have? I mean, I think moving forward, because this is already law now, I think for me, it's reach out to your current legislators and say, shame on you. Please include me in these kind of things that are going to affect our community in particular. People who are living on Catchment and are in office really should have known that most of us would be very alerted when people are like, when we see something that says, allow the county to require, you know, you to register your catchment tank and possibly be inspected. Of course, a lot of people jump to the you know, 10 years down the road of like all the crazy things that could happen. However, the door is open to all of those crazy things because this law was written, and it was written in this way. And so it's, you know, one of those things where two-way communication with our representatives is mandatory at this point. And I think everyone in office needs to know that you can't just send me a newsletter at the end with all your marketing materials saying all the things you did. You should have to list every bill you said yes to. So, you know what I mean? You should have to give us all the information, not the marketing and promotion, because I think that's what bothers me is people stay in office for long periods of time because they get to use taxpayer dollars many times to send out their marketing materials at the end of a session, and it doesn't give us a real picture of what is. Just as someone who spent time at the Capitol now, you know, on the, testifying and things for a couple of years, for many years actually, but doing lots of different issues now the last couple of years, they send out marketing materials. That's literally what those newsletters are.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Right.
great headlines.
Right.
Yeah. You
So
know,
what? Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sylvia, please.
I was just going to say, this is a great example that we need to jump on. It's a great example of a lot of things being held back, us not knowing, maybe not pushing for it, all of that. So it's a great example for a call to action. We need to take responsibility of being informed. We need to, like you said, push on our legislators to put out more stuff other than marketing material in their newsletters. And, you know, I'm on two of their, because I used to be in Ashley's district before Pele covered up my farm with lava. And now I'm in District 5, Kleinfelder's district. I used to get newsletters from them. I haven't seen a newsletter in over a year. I don't know if they're still putting them out, and I dropped off the list or whatever. And it was a mix of, this is what I did, and here's a bill that's on the table, which, you know, I like both. And we need to push for that. Our call to action, for me at least, is to be more aware, I have different alerts on different types of bills that I want to be alerted to for testimony, things like that, but I can't put them on all of them. My email would blow up. But for things specifically impacting my community, my district, I certainly want to know. I want to be alerted, and I'm going to be pushing for that from the state and the council, the county council,
And I
legislators.
think the problem is that if you talk to current legislators, most of them will say, well, just sign on to capital.hawaii.gov and sign on to all the bills that you want to get updates on. And that is a absolute nightmare and not a good answer in my
Right.
because I've done that, and then you get all these things saying this bill's being heard in this committee, this bill's being, it doesn't even it tells you the bill number, it doesn't tell you the title, you know what I mean? You have to open up the whole, it's crazy, and things move so fast. We need
And
if they're allowed to process 4,000 bills a session, they need to have some sort of way to communicate with the people of their district on every bill that they're voting on somehow.
Yes.
so one answer to that, Tanya, that I've been, when we run campaigns, we're answering endless questionnaires and surveys and stuff. And I think it was the Our Hawaii survey maybe that was asking about this length of leg session. Because for anybody who doesn't know, the legislative session essentially starts January 20th and it ends on May 8th. So they're at work 5 days a week for 3 months, a little less than 3 months, for the state reps salary of $75,000 or so a year. Plus our reps also get a $250 per diem every single day they're over there.
Whether or not they actually are home or not, they get
right.
Diem.
So they get paid plenty of money. They get paid definitely more than most of us make on average for an entire year. And then again, we find them not in community. So one way that I would really like to shift that is that we need to have mandatory town halls. You better be up in your community at least once a month out in the public talking to people. And then when we hit crossover is when it goes from House to Senate or Senate to House. That's kind of the mid session or midway point. I would love to see a month or maybe even a 2-month long break it right there, so that all of our representatives, all of our senators can come back to our communities, hold those town halls, do those community meetings, explain to us, this is what I've been doing, this is what I'm up to, how would you like me to proceed forward? So that there is just a moment to take a breath in the center instead of literally drowning and the 3,000 to 4,000 bills. Especially for those of us, it's they tell us to pay attention, but it's also just you guys, you're the ones getting paid. We all have one or two other jobs that we need to just keep our roofs over our head and our families fed. And you have a staff. It's your job to communicate with us and to represent us. And if you're not communicating with us, then you're not representing us. So that's my structural answer
that's
to that.
That's a really good point. I just want to stop right there because that's a really good point. And how can you represent the community if you're voting in a vacuum and not talking to the community about the bills that you're voting on? How are you representing people? I mean, I believe in a representative democracy. I believe in a direct democracy as well, which I hope we can eventually move forward to. But if we're going to have a representative democracy, are we really being represented right now? I mean, certainly at the federal level, that's a big answer, no. As a 100% no. At the state level, I would argue, I don't think so, really. We need people who are way more care about how long it takes to engage with community. It does take a lot longer to sit down with people and engage. And personally, I'd love to see people are I can't vote on that bill because I just got it 15 minutes ago. Or I got it 12 hours ago. And I haven't talked to my community. So we shouldn't be voting on this bill yet because we all got to read this bill in committee yesterday. And now you want me to vote for it. Right after hearing feedback, maybe in one committee from people who are coming, and maybe no one showed up. maybe a whole bunch of people showed up and you want to digest that information, but you have to vote right then and there. And occasionally they will say, yeah, we'll defer this to the next committee. But everything is forced to move so fast. And it's almost like a job that you have where you just are, you're like, I can't change, you're like a line worker. You know what I mean? And you're forced to do the most efficient thing possible. You know, I'm just making that burger and putting that fries in the bag. And, you know, like, are you engaged with the person? Did they actually want pickles and you gave them ketchup and they don't like ketchup? And you know what I mean?
Well, and going forward for this bill, since it is a law now, my suggestion for what we can do moving forward is we need to start writing for ourselves our ideas for what registration means, or even like where the grandfathering in goes. Like we need to go ahead for ourselves for Hawaii County, be talking with our neighbors, talking with our own smaller level communities to talk about what things we expect and what things we expect to leave us alone, so that we can each start petitioning or lobbying our own county council representatives.
Right.
Because
be proactive.
Yeah, we have to be proactive on it, and that is one positive I can see in where we're at in this process. Like we don't necessarily like this bill on a state level, but we do have the opportunity to use the essentially home rule action that it provides to make sure that we get to say what is happening on Hawaii Island, because it's clearly we're a very, very different situation than like my understanding, the introducer from Kauai, like their situation is that you cannot have catchment in an area served by county water of any kind. So I think that's where they were starting with, which like makes sense. Like
Totally
they're
makes
literally
sense.
fighting for the same thing we're fighting for. They're just coming from an entirely different angle. And so now we need to make sure that like, okay, cool. I hope Kauai gets what they need. And also we need to protect ourselves and make sure that we continue to get what we need. And we'll do that by now stepping up and doing the work of starting to put together ideas of how this legislation can look for Hawaii County.
Micah has her hand up.
Oh, okay, Micah, go ahead. Unmute, please. Micah? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Sorry, I don't know if I hit the raise hand button, but yeah, I jumped onto this Zoom late. I saw an advertising online about the bill being passed and then it coming, it's up to the county's decision, and I'm coming into this meeting late, but I do agree with what Christina was mentioning about locally activating our districts to make sure that the powers that be are in the best interest of the constituents. There is a lot of feedback in comment section, and I read through it all. Sometimes I break my own rules of reading the comments, but I want to get both sides of people's perspective, and also be able to just kind of see where people are at. And I hear I hear some both sides, but as a person, I am living on water catchment. I have for the past 20 years in Mountain View. And so I just want to get more information to be able to take to my community members here in the acres, Fern Acres, because a lot of people don't know the information and then they're just jumping the gun and freaking out. And so I just want everybody to, I want to get as much information as possible, so that I can be a voice and stand firm that this is not what we want, or if this is what we want, we all have to stand unison and say, okay, but I think the community for Big Island is not Oahu or Kauai or Maui. We are a different island, and
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we make sure that our needs are being met without, you know, the folks just fast tracking or doing things behind the back. So I just want to, I jumped on, I accidentally, I guess, raised my hand and wanted to put in my mana'o, but yeah, it's just a lot of information coming. I just heard about it like a couple days ago, and I was like, okay, let's not freak out. It is, it is, but then it's like, whoa, the governor signs the bill, and now it's up to the counties. And I'm sorry, but I am not very my faith in our local government is not where it should be. So I think, just watching all of the systems from local, state, federal, you name it, this is the time for community members to come together, talk
Right.
story, and work through these issues together. And I think, when we can go back to that basic, you know, feature, we can get a lot more done. But there's so many mixed intentions or this and that. And I think, I agree, having these community spaces are very important. Um, and mahalo for having me speak today.
Of course, and thank you for attending this since you do have a lower level of enthusiasm for what's happening in our local governments. That's literally why people like Tina and I are running, is because we would also have a very low enthusiasm level, but because we're involved, we have a lot of hope. Because we are putting a significant amount of energy into this.
Yeah. The antidote to despair is action. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I may, I had just made a couple of bullet points to like more specific suggestions of what we can be talking to community about in order to guide our county council, which also remember could change drastically this year. So this is also talking to people who are the candidates who are in office as incumbents and like really trying to help them know that we're on it, right? So these are just my like a couple suggestions. We want to absolutely unequivocally protect existing users with grandfathering language if there's to be any new ordinances. I want to make sure that registration, if they do decide to move forward with that, is burdenless to the individual, free, and one time only. Maybe also worth noting that I'm pretty sure there's already things that need to be done to do larger catchments on Hawaii Island when you're doing new builds. So like that might already cover it for us. I want a separation and like a clear distinction between commercial, industrial, and residential ag. And like when I say ag, I'm specifically talking about more residential styles of ag. I'm not talking about big giant
Right.
commercial ag, right? So that we're looking for small working class and
Makes sense.
big billionaire money. And then we need to whatever language there needs to be, it needs to be super clear that this may never become a tool to restrict what's already working for tens of thousand Hawaii Island families. So this is, we have to protect our working class at all costs, in my opinion. So those are just a couple of my ideas of what we can start mulling on as neighborhoods and communities for what we can turn around and immediately start demanding, since we're at where we're at in this process now.
Right. And Tina, I agree with you. And what came to mind was we're going to have a new council one way or the other, because there are a few people terming out, 3 actually. So we'll have at least 3 new council members, maybe a few more. And we can propose that to them, as that needs to be their process. We can get one council member to make a proposal, have the community involved, we'll get the whole input before it goes to proposal stage. But if the council adopts that, then that's their new rules of engagement, not only with the community, but with each other, so that they do due diligence. I mean, we pay them, we're taxpayers. We should call the shots, and too many times we have not. So I like your ideas. Those are some of the ideas that I was thinking of myself, and you voiced it very well. And I would like to see us move forward with that as an action to get greater input and make a proposal, because they have rules that they follow. Sometimes I don't understand their rules or think they're not very effective rules, but they could have new rules and new standards, and it's up to us to call them on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely should be talking to the people running for council right now about this.
Yes.
And where they stand on this issue, if they know about this issue. And also just in general how they feel about the state imposing things like this onto the county, because without we should be able to have home rule whenever possible. And so at the very least, why are our state legislators not talking to the county people? And if they have been, why isn't that transparent, right? Like, why isn't that a transparent thing, so that we know? A couple people are like, oh yeah, that's great, that'll get you guys around the concurrency law that's in the subdivision code that would restrict water systems or housing to be developed, in areas without water infrastructure by the county. If those conversations occurred, it would just be like nice to know. The lack of transparency and outreach and accountability is to the point where it's almost, I understand where Micah is coming from. I understand where my own children are coming from. Like, what's the point, Mom? They just do what they want. You know what I mean? And so that's why I actually brought all these issues up. That's why I wanted to have a Zoom. I want to hear from people. What do we want? Like, we need more discussion about it until we know what the pathway is for us, because we want as many people to voice their opinions and see where we're at. But the bottom line is the solutions have to be community-based and directed. We're already living on Catchment.
Right.
So I'm going to jump in here.
Thanks,
What do you think the best avenue is for that community-based input is? Are we going to have working groups? Where do we go from here?
I think, I mean, anyone can answer, but first and foremost, I think we want to talk to the people who are running for office right now. Because we're in Puna, we're gonna lose 4 of our council members for sure, right? Because they're termed out. So 4 of our 9, or 3 are termed out, and 1 is not running. So I think we want to start with, like, okay, because those are the people that we're going to be depending on at some level to push whatever through that we are working on. But I do think we need working groups. I think we probably on Oahu, they have what's called neighborhood boards, and so they're kind of like community associations, but they're not. They don't have to do with like where you live in terms of the subdivision. They have to do with like where you live as like a district. So we need to have like district meetings by everyone who lives in those districts. So we have 9 districts, county council districts, right? And we need to be able to get people together, and we need to figure out where everyone's at and where's our lines, where are our common denominators on what we want. This is not about division. Government today thrives on our division, because then they can do stuff and know that we're just going to fight amongst each other. We need to find our common denominators on this issue, and the things that Tina just stated. Like, we want clarity on the zoning that they're talking about. Like, we want to make sure that gets corrected. right? So that commercial level standards aren't imposed on residents. You know what I mean? What standards we'd be okay with? Maybe none. You know what I mean? Like, that's where we got to get. Like, where are we unified so we can get clarity on that? And we could take care of that in our districts first, right? We have 2 Puna districts. We have District 2, which is Tina's district, and we could probably get District 6 involved because that's Ka'u and I think Ocean View, and they've got a lot of catchment. And we got District 4.
5.
Yeah, 5, right? So we've got a handful of districts, at least 4 of us, that we are going to know people in, that we can mobilize and activate so that we can have some community meetings about this. And for me personally, I'd want to do this after the primary date of August 8th because I'm kind of busy running. Or we could try to schedule something for, early August in that first week so that we can start getting work on this. But I'm all for mobilizing and activating as many people as possible on this issue. Water is not just life, water is alive, and it keeps us alive. Like, let's just use the right form of the word. Water is alive, and we need it to stay alive. And so don't tell me what to do with my water, personally.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
if I may just like piggyback onto water is life, for anybody who's watching and interested, another thing that we're working on right now is changing the zoning code so that no hyperscale data centers can ever be built here.
Thank you.
Yes.
So that is a county level issue that we're working on. I would love to see it become a state moratorium as well, which I'm sure Tanya and I will be working on if we get into office. But for now, we're working at the county level, and it is not a dissimilar process as to what we're talking about here to make sure that our catchment system comes down on the right side of the people. So if anybody's interested in talking about data centers and how that can affect our water, please reach out to me or Tanya or anybody else who's here who may have knowledge about it. But it's very much live. It's a live situation we're in right now.
Yeah, that is a very live situation.
And Tanya, I wanted to mention that, let's see, it was about 3 years ago, we did what you're talking about. We had town hall meetings in every district on this island. It was sanctioned by the council. It had to do with animal welfare and the animal issues, the overpopulation, the dog attacks, all of that. So we went to each one of those districts, gathered the input. We had very good attendance from the community. We had animal welfare nonprofits there and lots of individuals there that wanted to give their input. And we looked at it, we categorized it. People voted with a little sticky dots, and we came up with the top 5 issues that then we presented back to the council and to the mayor and all of that kind of stuff. There was unfortunately, the council did what they wanted to do, but with a new council, I think we need to educate and train them, like you're talking about, and also propose standards, because that input, had we done something 3 years ago, we wouldn't be where we are with the animal issues today, and still people getting attacked, bitten, and animal cruelty and all of that going on, which is a growing issue. It's grown much bigger than it was. But that format really, really worked because people felt heard, and everyone who was on that list got to see the output, got to see the results, got to see what we were doing with it, because it was all transparent. So just wanted to bring that up as an example. That's because right. It's a little time consuming, but it was very easy to do. People got really engaged.
They did. You really did well. And you've always been like that with animal rescue. So, which is also used to be very controversial. A lot of the big issues were controversial, right? So like, that's the whole thing. So for me, when an issue appears controversial, that's an opportunity, because as you know, in your own relationships and families, right? The only way through conflict is through conflict. You can't go around it. Like, you can't just be like, well, those people don't all matter. We're not going to listen to all them. They organized 9 district meetings, and they got all these people together in the same room who aren't always on the same page, quite frankly, but they all agreed on all these things, and they became part of the process. And then for the council to just like throw that out the window, it's on one hand good that all those people saw how you can be discounted. But you guys didn't give up. And so that's what I love is like we're learning how to get ahead of the game in front of the issue
Yes.
so that we are on offense instead of always on defense.
Yes.
We're getting
Yes.
better and better and better at it. So
And
yay.
my very favorite Einstein quote, and I think I said it at the open mic, was intelligent people solve problems, geniuses prevent them. And that's what we need to move forward.
Right.
Being proactive, being preventative, not have all the issues that we have because they're solvable, you know, but let's not wait till something happens for us to solve it. We already have that experience. Let's look at then how do we prevent this? How do we get the community involved to set the standard and then educate and then, you know, all of the things that we need to do.
I mean, one of the things we can include in the bill is that, you know, the county will never impose a fee to catch for rainwater harvesters. Like we're already paying to be our own water infrastructure, our own water department. You know, do not charge me like a driver's license.
Right.
Because I'm paying for everything here. You know what I mean? So don't do this. You know what I mean? It's not like you know. So there's things that we can do because we are if we keep our eyes on the prize and what we need to do and actually do it.
Yep.
You know, we don't have time to panic on things when shit hits the fan on us. You know what I mean? We don't have time to panic. That's wasted energy for me. Like, let's figure out what we can do and let's just do it. And then eventually, as we get better at this, a lot of these dinosaurs are going to term out. They're going to just roll out. It's going to be because of age or whatever. You know, we don't have a lot of term limits, but at the county we do. So a lot of these people will term out. And we will get ahead of this, and things are going to be better. But right now we're in a transition, and we've got to activate and mobilize and get activists in office. Because activists don't want to talk about an issue. Real activists want to just fix it so that we don't have to do it anymore. Like, it's fixed. Yay. Look at that. We're not killing animals for profit. Yay. You know what I mean? Like, yay. We can be in charge of our own water since we paid for all of it to be the way I want it. You know, don't impose more restrictions on me. You know, so these are low-hanging fruit things. There's bigger issues that were brought up, like in the HPP meeting about sex trafficking, things like that get way more complicated. And so those are much higher fruit. So also for us to take care of the things that we know we can take care of without massive pushback from the way things are, we should take care of, because we also have a lot of really, really big issues that are embedded in our life structures, unfortunately, that are also going to have to be taken care of, and those are way harder. And I know Becky was at that meeting, and it was just like heartbreaking to hear how some of these things are happening.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank everybody for being on here. Please, after I upload this video, I'll upload it to my YouTube channel and then share it out and get it on Facebook, and let's share it wide and far so people aren't panicked. They can get activated and engaged, or at least follow us so that we can, we'll have to like create some sort of like island-wide roadshow on water infrastructure and water catchment.
Yeah.
Count me in.
Thank you everybody for being part of this, and thanks for inviting me. This has been a great conversation.
And I want to thank everybody for being involved in this. And I know most of you have met some of the different stakeholders in this issue, because it isn't just a one-sided issue. So as we talk and as we do these planning, we need to recruit those who are part of the issue. And I want to thank everybody for what they've done so far.
Great place to end. So mahalo, everyone.
Wait, Tanya,
Mahalo and aloha.
Before you go, Tanya, you better say your campaign stuff again.
Oh yeah, by the way, I'm running for State Senate District 2. I'm Tanya Yamanaka Anasazian for Puna, with Puna, okay? For Ka'u, with Ka'u, for Big Island, for Hawaii, with Hawaii. We got to do this all together. People people over politics, 100% of the time, place above all.
Yep. Guarantee. And I'm Christina Holt. I'm running for House District 2, Heart of Hilo. And same as Tanya, we need to remind these people who they work for and make sure that we have our community leading the way.
Yes. And thank you both for running and for your service, because I know it's a lot of work. So thank you.
It's a lot of work, and I try to tell people that I'm not running for office, I'm standing up. I'm standing up for the people who we are tired of not being heard.
Yes.
Yep. Full agree.
Also, running is exhausting.
It is. But I'm tired of my calls being ignored, you know? I'm tired of getting stood up by our representatives and our senators. So here we are.
Yep.
Here we are. And thank you guys. I look forward to getting this video out there. And we actually are going to have another water Zoom next Thursday, July 16th. Ku'ule and I are hosting that one. Ku'ule is running for State House District 3. And so that's also a Zoom. And the link for that, it'll be 6:30, July 16, tinyurl.com/Zoom HI, Zoom Hawaii. All right. And that's in general water issues. Aloha, everyone. Thank you.
Aloha.